back to the social media derby. Today we've got a very special guest. I'll skip over you for a minute, Anthony, just so I can get to him with his shocking top on right now. We have a great mate of ours, a very regular appearance in the group chat, talking out of his ass. He's now going to be on the podcast today, adding some of that to the mix here. Ayo, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, mate?
Hello, yes, how you guys doing? Yeah, Ayo. I've done talking is not what I do. Talking logic is what I pride myself on personally. So hopefully I'm going to bring some of that to the podcast today, and yeah, some insightful talks, and I guess gonna hopefully educate Jonathan the same way and Jonty the same way at the end of group chats a bit. So good luck to him.
Yeah, good luck to you, mate. Anyway, how you doing, Ant? How's it going? I saw your results today. We'll get into that in a minute, but how you doing, mate?
I'm feeling like a dog's ass, but this is going to be a good episode. So I'm looking forward to chatting with a logical Arsenal fan for once.
Shocking. They don't exist, mate. What are you talking about? All right, so it was. I mean, let's be honest, lads. It was a dead end of the season for the two of us. There wasn't really very much to play for, but obviously some interesting things happening elsewhere in the league. But let's start with the Arsenal fixture. So, Ayo, how did you find it, mate? I know it was a big win for us, but I don't think you know very much about it, do you, mate?
Sadly, it wasn't the game I had on today. Actually, yeah, I think like 2 months ago, I think everyone was buzzing for this game because I thought this would be the title celebration at the moment. But then I think today, obviously, as the season played out, didn't go the way we expected. So yeah, that was good result. Obviously, I think seeing Xhaka get a couple goals, on his send off. I think that's pretty good for him. Jesus getting back on the score sheet. Saka obviously after signing the new contract. So I think obviously it's a good result, but I think ultimately it doesn't really. Yeah, it is what it is, and I guess we just got to see what happens in the summer, and then hopefully take and the next step next year. But yeah, overall wasn't really the game I was focused on today.
Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. I think all three of us were watching probably 3 games at the same time, and the Arsenal one wasn't really the focus of what we were watching. But Ant, how about you? What did you think about the result? I mean, it's nice that we finally won something after however many games.
Now, it looked like you guys played well. Yeah, to be fair, I didn't watch the match. I was flicking between Everton Bournemouth, which was really dead, and the Leicester West Ham match. So I didn't see too much, but I caught the highlights, and it looked like you just pummeled them from start to end, really. And it just looked like one-way traffic. But this is pretty. We've talked about in the group chat before. It's pretty standard Arsenal behaviour, isn't it? When the pressure's off, start playing like prime Brazil. But when the pressure's on, things get a little bit too techie for you guys. So I don't know. It's hard to make a judgment in it on a final day 5-0 home to Wolves. You're not playing for anything other than like pride and to get a win in next season's kit. That's basically all I can think about for the match, to be honest. But what about you, Johnson? Did you watch it? Was it one of the matches that you were flicking through?
So I did watch it, but I probably only turned it on after about 16 minutes, so we were already 2-0 up at that point. And when I looked at the score sheet and saw bloody Xhaka had scored both of them, I thought I must be dreaming, mate. The fact that hasn't scored that much this season, and particularly hasn't scored a lot over the last 3-4 months, and then the fact that he's getting on the score sheet twice, it was a strange one, to be honest with you. I thought we would probably lose it again, and just really close out the season in a terrible way. But I mean, like we've kind of said already, it's typical Arsenal settings. I saw a couple of memes that were jokes where it's like Arsenal when there's nothing to play for, and then it's just a picture of the Invincibles. And that really sums it up. And I don't want to get into the whole bottling discussion, but that kind of even more confirms it to me, right? Because we're all talking about, we've got injuries, this, injuries, that, different problems with players that we've got playing and different problems with formations and so on because of that. But at the end of the day, it clearly has come down to pressure, right? And I think that's when we talk about bottling it, that's really what we mean, right? Is letting the pressure get to you and letting it ruin all of the results, right? Not being able to hold out. And I think today we saw some great examples of teams holding out, right? Like Everton, for example, the screamer from Decore. I think that is, if we had shown a bit more of that kind of mettle earlier in the season, when we were playing bloody Southampton and West Ham and whoever else, we might be in a different situation. And I mean, speaking of that, did you lot see NSG putting out a new video in the Arsenal stadium? They were clearly expecting it to be an Arsenal win, and I think that maybe summarizes how some of us have been thinking. Some of us, not all of us, some of us have been considering this season, right? Is that we kind of thought it was over, or people were talking about, we have to win it after like 15 games and that. So, yeah, I mean, good result to end the season, but again, just the general circumstances are not what we want to see, not what we want to hear. And I think there wasn't really that much interest from a lot of Arsenal fans. It's been a roller coaster of a season, isn't it? So I don't think we were all that interested in what was going to happen. We just wanted to make sure we got a win. So, I mean, I guess speaking of getting a win and ending the season nicely, Old United, you finished in third now. You already got a piece of silverware, trying to go for your second. How did you think the game against Fulham went today, Ant?
Yeah, I mean, we had slightly more to play for than you lot, because I think there was a bit of an element of wanting to try and finish third if we could. But it was a terrible start to the game. Like, I was obviously, thanks to our beautiful broadcasters here, like Sky, I thought they were televising every match, like on the last game week. Like, I'm pretty sure they have, right, in previous years, lads. I'm pretty sure that's the norm. But for some reason, they didn't. So I didn't prep myself with other methods of watching live sport until like 15 minutes in, and by then I think Fulham had scored. They just had a pen, so I literally got onto the live stream of the match and saw De Gea, like a fucking unicorn, popped up and De Gea saved the pen. And then pretty much after that, we were all right. We were decent. We kind of peppered them with quite a few chances. Garnacho hit the bar. Sancho had a shot which was saved. I think Rashford had a shot that was saved. We started to pressure them, and then eventually got the equaliser. And then the second half was a bit of a dead kind of. It was terrible watching. I'm not gonna lie. It was a real snooze fest again. But Fred popped up with a defence splitting pass, another unicorn, and Bruno scored the winner. But yeah, I don't think anyone's head's kind of been in the game since Thursday. But I don't even think Thursday. I think since the Bournemouth win, I think we kind of felt like top four was secured, and those dirty Scousers couldn't come and nick it from us. So I think everyone's attention, United-wise, has been focused on how the fucking hell do we beat City in the FA Cup, and trying to work out how to do that rather than focus too much on these games, because we've been good at home. So
I saw you didn't even play Varane. He's in my bloody fantasy team. I had about 4 players that didn't get played today.
It was a strong team though. I was expecting him to ring a lot of changes since we battered Chelsea on Thursday. Which was a lot easier than I expected, by the way, because obviously we've had 2 games this week. So we've obviously had that one on Thursday, confirmed top 4. Chelsea are really shit, man. There's no way to polish that turd. They're just terrible. They're really, and Frank Lampard might be the worst. You remember when Jose did that rant about Frank de Boer when he was Crystal Palace manager and said he lost every game and he was rubbish. We need to change that.
Why didn't he call him the worst manager in the history of the league? Yeah.
How could Lampard's got to be? Ayo, come on, Lampard's got to be the worst manager in Prem history, surely.
I have never seen a man seemingly somehow fail upwards the way Lampard has. It is because even with Everton, the fact that they survived, I'm pretty sure he was there, wasn't he? And they looked absolutely lost, and then Sean Dyche has come in and he's completely steadied the ship and made them stay up. And what I've seen at Chelsea, obviously I think the situation was hard. Obviously, you signed that many players at once, but they have no idea. And even if I was him, at least play the youngsters since you got in there, at least give them a chance. He's just persisted. He's played like Aspilicueta. He just hasn't shown any sort of idea or nous to know what he's actually doing. So hopefully this is the last top job he has for a while. I think he still needs to kind of learn the game, which is a bit rich coming from me, obviously. And he's
to be fair, I feel like we could be better coaches if we just listened to the coach's voice, the Instagram page, and did some of their courses, saw some of the videos with Will Steele and that. We'd be better. I mean, we already play Football Manager. The Lampard bar is so low.
Yeah,
I'm certain we could all be better.
But I was right. I don't get what he's even doing. Like with the Chelsea game on Thursday, right? I thought, right, Lampard is shit. Chelsea are abysmal, but they've got a lot of players. So like he can actually fiddle around and try and make a bit of like a nuisance for us on Thursday and actually try and do something. But as soon as I saw the lineup and Aspilicueta's playing right back, you had the young lad at left back. He's still playing Havertz up front. He started Mudryk.
The left backs are baller though.
No, he looks good.
He looks
he looks good.
It's like Lewis Hall, I believe his name. He's got left foot. He's got some deliveries on him. He's the only player that Lampard has played since he's got there that I feel like might have a future that actually shows some talent. And I think he's a Chobham product as well. So obviously the academy is crazy in the first place. But he just looks he looks like a good player. He's got some talent to him for sure. But apart from that, I think absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think Graham Potter was the one who brought him in originally, right? I remember him playing against City, I think, for like in the Carabao Cup or something, and thinking he's decent. But Chelsea were rubbish on that day, man. They were actually decent in the first 35, 40 minutes, and actually had a few chances and just missed everything. And somehow we were like 2-0 up at half time without playing too well. And then in the second half, they were just terrible. Like the only guy who, like Ayo said, Lewis Hall was good at left back, and João Felix. Look, I mean, he's a silky baller, isn't he? Like when he came on in the second half, he's obviously a good player. But they were rubbish, man. And I think these two games are just get them out of the way, get to the cup final, and then pray for City to bottle it, Pep to overthink it. I don't know. I'm clutching at straws, but yeah, that's our end to the season. You know what I mean? Get third now for the optics to look like we've done better than we have, and make sure Newcastle don't get a bit too rowdy now that they're in the Champions League and they got all that money. But apart from that, man, it's the end of the season. All the jeopardy. I think it must have been pretty shit for the broadcasters, to be honest, because they probably wanted a title race to go down to the final game. They wanted top four to go down to the final game, and then
it's just another party that Arsenal have let down in this whole thing, isn't it? Bloody hell. It's the broadcasters, the fans.
It's not just you guys, man. Liverpool bottled it as well. Let's spread the bottle around. They've been shit as well this season, so they haven't created a top four race either. So it's been a lot of different things, man. But I think we're both now glad to see both our teams are glad to see the back of the season, and start prepping for next year. Yeah, and hopefully title charges.
Yeah, we'll see about that. But I mean, before we get on to some of those other segments, what did you think of the Man United game? Did you manage to get any looks at it?
Caught a couple glimpses, but again, I think, as I said, my main focus today was just kind of seeing Leicester or out Leicester and Everton went down, to be fair. And I think because obviously United, they've secured top four already. I didn't think it was going to be, and I think Fulham as well. I think what Fulham's done this year has been absolutely brilliant anyway in the first place. But they've stayed up considering their situation. But there was like some results or some games were just kind of like you just kind of knew it wasn't going to be, I guess, worth watching. But then saying that, Liverpool Southampton turned out to be a blinder. But nah, Fulham United didn't really come on the radar today. So sad.
I mean, you say that, but I was watching it just because I had like one eye on live score and trying to see if Newcastle would win. Because I was hoping, like, when Tete, by the way, I got Tete in my fantasy Premier League, by the way, and he's been smashing it. Got another 7 points today. But yeah, no, I had one eye on the Newcastle game, hoping that they would somehow win and that United would lose, because that would have made them third, right, Ant?
Yeah. So we were 2 points ahead. So even if we drew and they won, they would have gone above us on goal difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, they drew at Chelsea and then we won. So it's ended up being a bit of a gap, a bit of a 4 point gap at the end. But really, it's been closer than that. Obviously, it's been close. Like Newcastle arguably probably deserved third more than us, but we managed to nick it at the end. I've got to be honest. The end of the season kind of reminded me a bit of, and this is not good omen, of like Ollie's first full season, where we secured top four like on the second to last game, and then we ended up somehow nicking third. somehow, but we didn't really deserve third. Like, we weren't like the third best team in England, but we just kind of, scammed our way into it. But even though Ten Hag's got us a trophy, I feel like the back end of the season's been really choppy. So it's been a similar kind of end result, isn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, from my point of view, I think it was. You had a lot more chances than Fulham. I mean, obviously, penalty aside, you kind of, in my opinion, it felt like you deserved to get something out of the game. It pains me to say that, but yeah, you definitely had quite a lot of shots on goal. Someone that looked really good was Sancho, man. And I think we've talked about this before, but Sancho was looking beautiful. I mean, who was it? Was it Anthony Robinson that he sat him on his ass?
Yeah.
He was looking crazy. And I think we talked about this before about, what's going on with Sancho and whether he's ever going to be able to get back to kind of Dortmund-esque form. I think he was a real star today. He looked really, really good. I mean, it could have just been a once in a blue moon type of thing, though, because Fred was pulling out killer balls and getting assists with like defense splitting passes, which I've never seen from that guy before. So you never know. It could have just been a fluke. But Sancho looked really, really good. What did you reckon of his performance?
Nah, man, he's played good now. This is the third or fourth game in a row that he's done well, and he's done progressively better and better game on game. So he was good against Chelsea as well, and he sat a couple of people on the as well against Chelsea. So he's it seems like he's found a bit of a rhythm. And I think that's what we kind of talked about before. I feel like on the group chat we've talked about it as well. Like, Sancho is not like, I don't know, his attributes doesn't lead him to like look super flashy and like shiny like a player like Rashford or something will. But once he's got rhythm, he's going to start tallying up better performances, start doing these things that he's doing. And I think there's, as much as, I can't even remember, Johns, if you rate Tony Marshall. But once Martial's back in the team, and them two, like, they play a similar type of football, like give and goes, close control, short passes. Like, it's a lot more about pass and move than with our other kind of, obviously Weghorst is a workhorse and doesn't offer anything else really. But the other wingers, you think about Garnacho, Antony, and Rashford and stuff like that. Those players don't really do a lot of that intricate, like one-touch passing, and I think Martial's probably the only other player alongside Sancho who does that kind of, who plays that kind of way. So I think Martial coming back into the team might have played some sort of at least very minor part in Sancho playing a bit better. But he also just looks fitter. Like, he's tracking back in the last few minutes. He looks like he's properly got his head in the game. I mean, it's fucking late in the season, isn't it? Like, the last 3 games. But hopefully that's a good sign, and hopefully he plays well in the final next weekend, and he goes into pre-season with a bit of confidence, because it's the old cliche, isn't it? When a player has been like anonymous or been shit all season and they start playing well and get form, it's basically like a new player, because like he's going to offer something that we haven't had, and we've been relying on, youngsters like Garnacho and loanees from Burnley like Weghorst and all of these kind of guys, when we've got a £75 million winger who's just been, I don't know, off in the Dutch mountains or whatever. I don't even know if Holland's got mountains, but doing fucking mental health courses and trying to get his head in the game for like half the season. Like, we need you to turn up for us, man. And I think he can be a big player next season. I hope, anyway. Hey, what's your take on Sancho? Because I can't really remember whether you rate him and what you think about him.
No, see, I think I do like Sancho. I think he's definitely got talent, got ability. Obviously, he's a good player. I think at Dortmund he was unreal, but I think Bundesliga suited. Like, I guess he could take advantage of like Bundesliga's slower pace, I guess, in a way. But I think obviously what you expect from him, I think what I've seen from like the clips I've seen of him, he's like, he doesn't really want to like beat the guy. Well, I don't even, he hasn't got the burst of pace to beat the guy anymore. He just doesn't. He's more about, as you said, the intricacy. He wants to maybe like make a little 1-2 and then like break down defender to get past. But I don't really see that burst that I guess you say like a Martinelli has to get past you and like run past you, like, or take you in like a foot race. So I think that is the issue. Like, obviously he's got talent. Obviously there's a baller in there. But I think obviously the issue you have as well is that you've invested so much money into him, like you need to play him eventually. And you have to get something out of him, or it's just going to be the biggest waste of money. But I think even the same way, like with Anthony, I think both your wingers, they just want to cut in consistently, but it's also sometimes I just want to see beat your man, like just run down, get past your man, get into that box, and then then make a final ball. But I think obviously they just want to come back inside, play the 1-2 off Martial or Weghorst, and then or Rashford, but then sometimes all like no sizzle, all the sizzle but no spice in the way, and it's just kind of just hey,
Exactly.
yeah. I think that's the
And
biggest issue
I
for
think
me.
and also with Man United's kind of counter-attacking style, that like stop-start doesn't work, man. It doesn't help with that kind of counter-attacking type football. Like the best way I can describe it is like you have players that are like Rashford, right? They're like the John Morants of the game, not like waving guns on live or anything, but just like pure athleticism, where they're just like they'll beat you with pure pace and then just slap it top corner. And then you have like the more intricate players, like kind of like a I don't know, like a SGA type of player, where they don't have that pace or that like athleticism to just like burst out and smash one top corner. They've got to be a bit more intricate with it. And I think when you're like that, you have to play with a lot of confidence. And I feel like if you look at Antony, for example, he probably plays with too much confidence because he's doing all kinds of dumb stuff that he shouldn't be doing and that make him look terrible. But I think with Sancho, it looks like he's just been fully off the confidence, and I think this is partly the fact that he's English and he's got the English media kind of swarming all over him at all the time. But I feel like Ten Hag is the right kind of manager to try to get the best out of him. I mean, like I would say it's a similar situation with like Rashford last year to Rashford today. I feel like Ten Hag will be able to get it out of him, and it looks like he's already starting to get it out of him now. So I feel like I would say that was kind of the bright spark, the big thing that I noticed from watching United's game today. Other than the fact that Mitrovic has just fallen off a cliff. I mean, so speaking of the end of the season and which teams went down and which teams deserve to stay up, I think one of the key segments that I've been seeing going around and something that a lot of people are interested in right now is really trying to rate their teams and understand, what were the successes, what were the failures, who really stood out in the season in both a kind of a positive and a negative way. So something we're going to go through today is a number of different end of season awards for our two teams. So for Arsenal and for Man United, obviously it's going to be funny here because the two Arsenal fans are going to have to rate Man United's terrible squad. And, the Man United fans are going to have to rate Arsenal's beautiful squad. So that will be great. So I think we'll start off with the first one will be the Player of the Season award. I think at least for the Arsenal side, we're probably going to be in agreement here, but let's go round. We'll go from youngest to oldest. So go on, Io. Who do you reckon is player of the season for Arsenal this season?
I've gone with I was like tossing up between two, but I think I'd have to give it to the big man at the back when our team fell apart completely. Big Saliba. I think ultimately for what he did do. I think it showed. Obviously, our season didn't fall down. It didn't just fall down to him, like us losing him. But I've never seen a team in quality drop off more when the player did not play more than what Arsenal looked like. Obviously, we bottled it mentality wise, but yeah, I think Saliba's impact and was just immense. I was tossing up between him and Martinelli personally, but I thought Saliba for I think the only reason I wouldn't go to Saliba because he missed like the last 2 months or so, 2.5 months, 3 months. So I guess in terms of being here, but I think when he was here, we looked pretty much unbeatable when he did play. So yeah, I got big Willie Saliba.
Interesting. I thought we were all going to agree here, but I'm probably wrong. And come in, help us. What do you reckon of that take, and who have you got?
So I'm also quite surprised, actually, pleasantly surprised by that, because I went with Saka, and I was also like debating between two players, but it was between Saka and Odegaard that I was doing the debate between. Not that I don't think Saliba's been amazing and like a revelation coming in centre back. He's kind of stabilised Gabriel a lot, and they've probably been the best Prem centre back partnership, to be honest. But I just think Bukayo. I mean, I know he didn't end the season fantastically, and I know his performances dipped more than not only just his kind of goals and assists kind of dried up, but he wasn't playing that well, and it seemed like the mentality stuff that I was just talking about also affected him. And I think normally when you watch Saka play, he's one of the few that doesn't look kind of like too unsettled when things are going a little bit shaky. But he did look like he was affected by it a little bit. Obviously, he missed the pen at West Ham, and there was a couple of games where he just looked like he was anonymous. But I still think overall his output to score, double-digit goals and assists in a season, and hardly miss any games as well, because he's basically played every game for you guys. I think he's been really important, because up until obviously before January, Martinelli was on the left wing by himself practically, but he did bring in Trossard, and Trossard's kind of gone to the left, been up front, and provided a bit of backup for Jesus and for Martinelli. But Saka hasn't really had that on his side. I know Nelson's come in a few times, but overall, he's kind of all of the weight's been on him. So I think I would go with Saka, but I think it was close between him and Odegaard, and I flipped and flopped a few times. But yeah, that's who I would have gone for. What do you think, Johns?
So that's an interesting one. I think. I mean, I'll get onto my point in a moment, but I think there's something that's coming out of the two of you here that I want to investigate a little bit. So I think, and when you're talking about Saka, you're talking about obviously someone that, like you said, didn't get a lot of squad support in terms of being able to be changed. He was like pretty much featuring in every single one of our games throughout the season, working his socks off, getting taken down a lot, and so on. And then on the other side, you're talking about Saliba, who obviously was missing for a decent part of our season. So when we're talking about player of the season, where do we stand on availability versus, I guess, injuries and so on? So I mean, I got to ask, why wouldn't you say Saka? You even said like, oh, it could have been Martinelli. You didn't say Saka once, mate. What's going on?
You know what it is, man. I love Saka. Obviously, like, Saka's the boy. He's a star boy. But I think also Saka's been a victim of, obviously his stats back him up. He's been immense for us, but he's also been a victim, I think, of fatigue. And I've been biggest Saka, one of the biggest Saka supporters, like in the group chats with all the mates and stuff. But yeah, in terms of impacting games these last 2 months, I'd say he's just yes, he might have got the goals and assists, but I think the drop off in terms of actually like taking the game by the scruff of his neck, like winning the game for us, or just making that impact, I think that's just tailed off a bit. Not because I don't think it's because of him. I think he's generally, as you said, he's just played every game. I think he's just tired, and I think in terms of Arteta, I think Arteta, that's my biggest gripe with Arteta this year. I think he just ran Saka into the ground completely. And obviously he's young. Obviously you're an elite player. You got to play the games, but those games where you didn't need to play him, where you could let the guy rest, maybe like in the cup or in Europe. And so obviously Saka's stats amazing. He's our best player, obviously by far. Like I'm not like I can never ever doubt his talent. But when we had again, I think the drop off from our team when we lost Saliba, obviously it plays a part. We had to put Rob Holding in there, and that just impacted things greatly. But when we lost Saliba, we just didn't look like the same team. Like we conceded, I think it was about 40 goals, 40 plus goals. That's just way too many goals to be conceding as a top team to try and win the Prem as well. And so I think ultimately, when obviously availability, the best availability is availability. I think that's like the same they always give you. Obviously, Saliba being injured it destroyed us. So obviously, he won't be the official player this season. But I think in terms of impact, I don't think anybody had more of a bigger impact this year for us in terms of just being a figure than Saliba.
I'll give you that. When I first heard it, I was thinking, what are you talking about? But I get what you're talking about when we're talking about impact. I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, this is the interesting thing about these types of awards, right? Is everyone kind of approaches it in their own way, and I think I kind of went a little bit in the middle of the two of you. So I have a toss up between Saka and Ramsdale. And I think the reason why I say Ramsdale is for the thing that you're talking about, Io. So impact on the team. And I think when we talk about impact on the team, when we talk about characters that might stand up in big games, characters that are going to be kind of putting themselves out there, showing themselves as kind of the face of the team and so on, I feel like Ramsdale's done a really good job of kind of deflecting away from some of our other players. You know what I mean? Like whenever I'm watching, build up to the games, I'm seeing Ramsdale talking to us, like talking to the presenters. I'm seeing, he's out there talking, he's out there kind of presenting the United front, and I think obviously that's just his personality. And then on the field, I think he's been amazing too. I know that obviously he's put in a couple of clangers, but I still feel like it's really harsh because that system doesn't make it easy for goalkeepers and defenders, right? So it's really easy in those kind of systems when you're playing out from the back to look really bad if you're a goalkeeper or a defender. It's really, really easy, right? And I think because you're playing such risky football, you're playing such high lines, you're pressing, you'll get, allowing a large amount of space that traditionally in olden times they wouldn't really allow, right? It was a lot more about dropping deep. We weren't pushing this far up the field. We weren't playing it out from the back. So I think in that regard, I think Ramsdale and Saka really have been the two best players on our team. I think they both have been pretty much featuring in every single game. They've been, in terms of numbers and stats, they've contributed quite a lot to our success this season. And then I think generally in terms of how they carry themselves, they've been the culmination of what I would hope Arsenal players would be, right? Like in the big moments, they're not freaking out. Like when we played Tottenham and Richarlison was going nuts and like Ramsdale got kicked by whoever, right? If that was Casemiro, someone's getting decked and he's getting banned for 10 games. So I think those two players to me at least have shown the most in that regard of how I want Arsenal players to play and how I want them to behave. So I think that for me, I'm going to give both of them player of the season.
No. You're going to have to get off the fence. You've got to pick one. You can't be picking two people.
All right. Just for yeah. All right. So for the sake of argument and to being different, I'm going to be a hipster and I'm going to say Ramsdale. So we're going to have Saka, Saliba, and Ramsdale as our Arsenal player of the seasons.
Ramsdale is scandalous.
Yeah, how dare you? No chance, mate. What are you talking about?
This podcast has lost all credibility, mate. I'm sorry, bro.
No,
I'm sorry,
shocking,
it had to be on your
shocking,
episode that this had to happen. This stinks, shots.
Wow,
yeah, you can't see what Ramsdale.
I'm an outlier, clearly, in a very positive way. You lot are morons.
Too many crying.
All right. Anyway, we'll move on. We'll move on to the Man United player of the season because we've got quite a few more awards to go through. So we'll start with the Man United fan and his shocking opinions. Go on, mate. Who do you reckon is Man United's player of the season this season?
There's only one boy. Can only be one boy. Come on. I know he's streaky, and that's the problem, right? Or that's what people point to as a problem.
Bloody Canadian bacon out here, yeah.
Exactly. Everyone says, but there is a lot of like misinformation about it too, because people say he was only good after the World Cup, and they try and isolate it down to narrow down the time frame to like a really small window. But actually, he was starting to cook a little bit before the World Cup, and he scored some big goals for us against some, home at Liverpool. He scored what turned out to be the winning goal. He had quite a few pivotal goals before the World Cup. And I think at the World Cup, I think Saka was the best English player at the World Cup, by quite a distance. But I think Rashford was the only other player I pulled from that England World Cup performance that I thought actually looked like he was picking up some form as well. And I think he carried that on pretty much until he started to get a few niggly injuries. And I think Ayo talked about the best ability is availability, and I think that's the only thing I could point to, maybe having an argument for another player. But it rules out our best players from this season, if you really think about it, because the other shouts I would have had would be Casemiro or Lisandro Martinez, and Martinez has been injured for a good couple of weeks. Casemiro's been, pulling people by their collars and doing all kinds of other madnesses and missing like at least a quarter of our season. But Rashford hasn't missed quite as much. And you know what our problem is? Like, you don't have to watch United too much this season in the Prem to understand that we don't score enough goals. And Rashford has been our only real outlet. And he's scored 30 plus goals if you look at all the games that we played this season beyond just the Prem. And he's been like, it's also, there's a lot of kind of the thing that it's kind of a Cinderella story because he was written off last season. Ragnick had him, riding a bench for Antony Alanga, and he just looked like he was a shadow of his former self. So for him to bounce back and score so many goals and score some big goals for us throughout the season, I think it has to be Rashford. But I understand that Casemiro will get shouts, Lisandro Martinez will get shouts, but I think it has to be our boy Rashi. Rashi has to get player of the season for me anyway.
What do you reckon, Aya? Are you in agreement there?
I'm actually not, but I can understand. I can understand Rashford. I guess goals are important, but I personally went with Casemiro. Really, I think when they signed him, I think everyone was like, he's a bit older. He might not do enough. But I think when you sign a player of his like level, experience, talent, ability, and he's also got a winner's mentality. I think you saw a difference in the United team the second he got into it, and I feel like he's the only like I don't fear United, but I think when they have Casemiro playing, it's just a different team. And I think if he gets a discipline order, obviously he can't be getting suspended left, right, and centre. That doesn't benefit nobody. But when he does play, I think you can just see the difference in United. And as a DM, as a centre mid, I think he's one of the best in the Premier easily. And when he's on form, he changes them. Like he gives Bruno that freedom to play. I don't rate Bruno, but Bruno looks a different player when Casemiro plays. And so I think it's just Rashford. Obviously, goals are key. Goals are important. But as you said, he's streaky. I've never had Canadian bacon, but I'm guessing he's the equivalent of what you might see as streaky. And so he gets a lot of goals, but I think Casemiro is consistent. When he does play, you know what you're getting from Casemiro. You're gonna get like a solid 7 out of 10 minimum. And for some reason this year he keeps popping up with goals as well. So I think the fact he's added that to is like his repertoire has just been. Yeah, I think that's made him, and he's like the only player I really found United. So yeah, I'd personally give it to Casemiro.
I mean, that is interesting because I had it between Casemiro and Martinez. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of shouts earlier in the season that small defenders and that, right? I'm not really one of those though. I think there's been quite a few small defenders in history that have been good or great even. And I think when we talk about impact to the team, it feels like when Martinez is in there, there's just like a completely different element, right? And I think I definitely feel the same kind of feeling with Casemiro too, right? There's like a steadiness to that whole team when Casemiro plays, and I feel the same thing about Martinez. I think that you could put him even next to Maguire, and it still looks steadier than I've ever seen Maguire look in that team. And I think like he's made Luke Shaw better. I feel like he's made a lot of the players around him a lot better. And I mean, obviously, yeah, he's had some injuries and that, but for the most part, I feel like he makes the biggest difference to the United team. If you have, obviously, you talked before about, Man United's main problem is goals, and that's why you're giving it to Rashford because he's the only one that really gets you goals. But I think the opposite way round, Man United's main strength this season has been you ain't letting in goals. And I think the big reason why you haven't been letting in goals is Martinez and the effect that he's had on the players around him. So in terms of Luke Shaw at left back or Varane on the side of him, even De Gea, right? They remember when De Gea gave that hospital pass to Maguire and everyone was slating him. Like some people were like, oh, you should never give him that pass. Martinez, they saw it side by side, right? Martinez got the same ball in the same area and dealt with it. And I think that's what Martinez does for that team. He makes a lot of the players around him that have the ability to be very shaky look a lot better. And I think it gives license to the players in front of him, whether it's Casemiro or if it's Bruno or whoever else, Eriksen, whatever, gives them all the license to go and play creative, good football. And that's why you might be seeing people like Casemiro able to get forward a bit more and score goals. I feel like there's that steadiness that comes with Martinez. And I think that out of all of the players that I've seen come into this team this season, he has made, in my opinion, the biggest impact and is the biggest reason why Man United are where they are today, right, in terms of third. Did you guys consider Martinez at all? Was he in the consideration for players of the season? Because I'm hearing a lot of Casemiro and Rashford, but what did you reckon at the back?
He was definitely in the shout, but I use the same logic. that Io talked about before, about the best ability being availability, and that's the only things that you can criticize Casemiro and Martinez for. It's a bit harsh on Martinez's side because he got injured, and he's not obviously trying to get injured, but that's kind of stopped me being able to deny the amount of goals that Rashford scored and look past him being sent to the multiverse by Salah, look past a few different things that have happened to him during the season, that I just couldn't once you added it up. And I feel like Casemiro's got the same problem. I agree with everything I said about his performances. I actually disagree slightly in that. I agree in terms of like you can more times than not, you can kind of, it's a banker that Casemiro is going to be 7 out of 10. But I actually think this season it's been very different for him because he's actually been really unpredictable in that he's scored a bunch of goals and he's had games where he's looked unbelievable and games where he's stunk it up to high heaven and doesn't look like he can do 5-yard passes. So I thought that was what we were going to get, and that's why when people were like, Graham Souness is chatting about him being a steady Eddie and blah, 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 I think he was being a bit harsh in terms of his achievements because he's won a lot, but that's what we thought we were getting. We thought we were getting the Rock in between the Modric, Cruz kind of creativity, the guy who's just going to sit there, pass it to Eriksen, pass it to Bruno and just chill and just marshal the defence. But he's actually been way more than that, for good and for bad, because there's been times when he hasn't been that good, but there's been times when he's popped up with winning goals or he's getting a first goal in matches, which often is, putting us in a much better place because we're not really a team that copes with adversity. Like if we go 1 or 2-0 down, we're not pulling it back. But if we go 1-0 up against anyone, we've got a good chance of getting, a win or a draw at least against good teams as well. So he's been really pivotal, but I think him and Martinez can't get it because of the fact they've either been suspended for a chunk of the season or they've been injured for a chunk of the season. But I can't disagree with you about their impact. They're the houses that we needed in that team. Let's be honest. That team was full of like pussies, basically. Let's be honest, or real like soft people in that team, and we needed some dogs to come in and start kicking people and doing little housery things. And that's the thing that I also like about Antony, who's obviously not anywhere near this combo, but of the players that we brought in, there was certain traits that you could say all of them have, and that was that little bit of a housery part. Apart from Christian Eriksen, like we have that element. But I think, I'm going to stick with Rashi for this one. But it was close. Those are the only 3 players I think you can consider.
Yeah, I'm glad no one had the cheek of trying to say De Gea with his bloody clean sheets. Anyway, we'll move on now. I think the next one we'll get into is obviously young player of the season, and I think we probably need to define here what we're talking about young player of the season. So when we talk about young player, we're talking about under the age of what, 23, 24, 22? What are we saying?
Yeah, under 23s makes sense, I think, because you can chop kind of the experienced players out.
Yeah,
and I'm going to kick this off, but I'm gonna do my ones like together. I'll do Arsenal and United together. So this is where I was trying to be a little bit tactical with my votes because this is where I put Arsenal's young player. I put William Saliba because I think he's been. You've got a bunch of youngsters in your team, so it's a hard thing to choose from. But I think for me, that one it was between Saliba and Martinelli. And Martinelli had a great shout because, people criticize him for some reason. I don't really know why. I get his style's not really super conventional. It's a lot of like dribbling and kind of, head down, running around and stuff like that. But he's amazing at it. And he scores goals and he's clinical. So he had a really good shout. But I think Saliba's transformed your defence. And I think he's the player that Gabriel needed. He's the player that Ben White needed. He's the player that Partey needed. He's the player that like a big core of your team needed. So I think it's got to be Saliba. He came back from loan, and it's been a great integration into the team. And for United, I think it's easy. There's no consideration. It's only Garnacho, We don't have any other youngsters. Like, we can try and Jesse Lingard, Rashford, and act like he's still 21, but he's like 26. So we can't do this. It's only Garnacho, and he's been really impactful for us, man. When Sancho was up in the mountains and doing his rehab and all that, Garnacho took his place and was scoring late winners against Fulham, important goals in the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup run. And in the stadium, when he comes on, you can feel it. Like, the whole crowd starts to get up and they actually feel like something's going to happen because he's really, really unpredictable and really direct. So I think for me, it's got to be Saliba and Garnacho. But I'm interested to hear what Ayo is going to say, considering he picked Saliba for Player of the Season.
Yeah, see, I don't even consider Saliba for young players, but which makes no sense considering I made him player, player of the season. But I guess that just shows the wonderful logic of this person's brain over here. But no, I actually went with Martinelli because as you said, I don't think his style's as attractive as the other wingers in terms of like how he does just run head down and it's like he's used as like a brute force in a way. But I think he also has a bit of that Brazilian in him where he can stand you up and then give you a little shimmy and get past you. And then I think this year you've seen that he can just get he's been effective in front of goal. He's got same from Saka, like double digit goals, double digit assists, I believe, as well. And yeah, man, I think he's just impactful and it's just like I think he's exciting. The only thing that would have put me down for which I would have said no for Martinelli was the missed pass against Liverpool in the 90th minute. Because that's left a sour taste in my mouth. I looked at him I looked at him very bad, like differently since that pass, and that was the only thing where I was like, out of spite, I would have said Saka over him. But if I've got to be like objective,
Out of spite, talking about spite and his own players.
Honestly, like that pass, it's good, but nightmares. I never. But I think overall, I think I've given it to Martinelli just because of impact. And yeah, man, I think it's been a breakthrough year, I think, for him as well. He made left wing his own position.
And what do you reckon for United?
As Anthony said, not much choice. Like, I was honestly racking my brain, and then I was like, I guess Garnacho is the only youth you actually given a chance to this year, unless you still consider Scott McTominay a youth. But I think that's in the same Rashford vein as well. So I think, Garnacho, just based off, by default. Basically.
I mean, theoretically, Antony's in the conversation as well, isn't he? He's in that young bracket, is he not?
If I mention Antony on this as my first appearance on this podcast, do not invite me back on to this podcast ever again. So I'm not going to say Garnacho 100%.
No, of course. I mean,
you could though. I mean,
no, but you definitely shouldn't. But you could.
No, you shouldn't. Sure. But age bracket rise, you could say Sancho, you could say Antony, but I don't know. It just feels wrong. Like, first of all, those two players have been this season or not good. But second of all, I don't know. It doesn't feel the same because they've been playing top level professional football either at United or other big clubs, and they don't really feel like they're having a breakthrough kind of impact. Well, I know Saliba has played in France and stuff like that, but it's felt like his first season, like at the big boy table. And Garnacho, the same thing.
So that's interesting, right? So because I chose Martinelli for Arsenal, and the reason why I chose Martinelli and not Saliba was that, I mean, when I was racking my head, I wasn't even considering Saliba to be a young player because of the way that he plays. He's got such a mature style. I didn't even think about it. Like, I didn't even consider him, and I probably should have because now that I look back at it, I mean, I don't have him in Player of the Season or Young Player of the Season, and he's been clear for us. So I think, I mean, I'm going to stick with Martinelli. I'm going to stick with my guns because I think you guys are talking about like an unattractive style or whatever, but I feel like I love that style, the style that he plays more so than any other winger that we have. Like, I love Saka. I like the way that he plays, but the fact that we have someone that just goes at you, and it's quite similar to Garnacho. They both just go at you. And if you're a right back, you're worried, right? Like, when I'm looking at like some of the players in the world today that really scare you and that you make you think that they might become something in the future, I'm thinking of people like Vinicius, where they go at you. They're trying to like go specifically at you and get past you and embarrass you and put you on the floor and whatever else. And there's something about Martinelli that just makes me feel like he's fearless. and he just goes at anybody no matter what. And I think in some instances maybe it hurts him because he needs to be looking up or he needs to be playing better balls and so on. And I think that will come with age, I hope. But for the most part, I love the way that he plays, because it's nice to have maybe some differences down the different parts of our wings, right? So having Martinelli on the left hand side do that, I feel like it offers something different to Saka on the right hand side. So I really think that the way that he plays is super attractive football for us, and I think it's really, really effective. And I mean, I've played in defense before. It's a nightmare, right? Like, those are the kinds of players that worry you, especially if you're a slow defender of any kind. Maybe Kyle Walker's not so worried about it, but if I'm anyone else, I'm worried by that. I don't want to have one little Brazilian Don running at me 24/7 all the time with the ball at his feet. That's a nightmare. That's Gary Neville nightmare right there. And then I think, yeah, for Garnacho, it's the same kind of thing. I think he's also got something about him. It's like that cockiness that just means that he comes onto the pitch maybe like 89th minute, and he's like, give me the ball, and he'll go at you and he'll get something. I don't know what it is. There's something clutch about him where it doesn't matter when you bring him on or who you bring him on against. He seems to do a lot for your team, whether it's with a goal or an assist. And I feel like it's happened a lot this season. It feels like almost like a repeat dream where he's coming on late, getting a goal or getting an assist for you. And I think he's probably the most exciting player, young player at least, that you've got in that team. And I'm not counting Antony. He's not even getting onto the shortlist. He's shocking. All right, we'll quickly move on. We'll try and get through these couple. I think they're probably a bit more straightforward. So our next one is for most improved player. I think I have suspicions on the Arsenal one. So let's start with you, Ayo. What do you reckon? Go through Arsenal, Man United. Who do you think their most improved players are this season?
Oh, most improved. I thought I was going to keep. Actually, I was just in my head. I was going to say Martinelli, but actually, I'm actually going with the boy that got 2 goals today, Big Granit Xhaka, actually. So I'm not a big Xhaka fan. I can't pretend to say I am, but this year I think he's actually been one of our better players, one of our most consistent players. To be fair, I don't really think there's been many mistakes in him. Like, he hasn't got any stupid cards, like stupid red cards. Hasn't given the ball away too often. He's actually one of like our steadiest players. So I think Big Granit actually deserves a big round of applause for what he's done this year. I think the fact people today were like actually clapping him off, like some of the fans were chanting, "We don't want you to go." I think because of the way he was a few years ago, I would have been, saying please get out the door. And to see what he's done this season, how he has actually been a revelation compared to Partey. Like, he's just been, I think Xhaka definitely deserves to definitely get the most improved player. And I'll definitely give it to Xhaka. And then for United, I'll give it to Rashford because I don't think I personally, I don't really rate Rashford highly as like a top player, but again, I could be being harsh, I could be being biased, but I think what he's done, I think especially the goal he scored against us as well was just, I think that showed the level of confidence he was playing with at the time, and then he just he couldn't really stop scoring, and I think that he megged Partey, which I guess isn't, before the season that would have been a big thing, but as the season progressed, it kind of made more sense because Partey wasn't up to scratch anymore. And so I think Rashford, I think for most improved for United, I'd give Rashford, and I think Xhaka and Rashford would be my two names personally.
So that's an interesting one. Let's get to Antony now, because I saw his eyebrows raise a little bit when you were talking about not rating Rashford. So Ant, who have you got as your most improved players this season?
So this might be the clippable part of this section because I've gone totally different than I'm guessing both of you guys. Although I understand the logic behind Xhaka because he was kind of like the most hated Arsenal guy, throwing a shirt, telling the fans to off, blah blah blah. You know, that's not gonna ingratiate you to the fan base if you start doing those kind of things. But I actually went with Odegaard, and the reason why is because I did not see 15 goals or whatever he scored coming from midfield, and I know he was good last season, but I feel like he's to get in that Kevin De Bruyne conversation, which he's been in this season in terms of like attacking midfielders or like, advanced eights or whatever. You've got to be doing something real special. And I feel like what he was doing last season, he was good, especially in the back end of the season. Obviously, before the top four bottle. Uh, but this season, he's been unbelievable, and I think neutral fans, rival fans, there's no doubt that people think he's probably the classiest player that you have. I know he's been making mistakes in a couple of matches recently. I think of the one against City. He didn't play amazing in the Brighton game. He hasn't been great in the games where maybe the team has faltered, but I just didn't see this level. This is back to like when he was 15 and everyone was talking about this wonder kid and blah 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 blah. This season has flipped him from a failed wonder kid potentially to he's definitely going to be a class player. Like you can't be doing what he's done this season and not be a top class player. And I think there will be a bit of a baton passing from De Bruyne to him as the years go by, because I think he'll step into that void as the Premier League's like next best attacking midfielder. And then for United, it was actually I was raising my eyebrows just because of you lot. I can see the pattern. You lot don't rate any one of our players. It's so biased. 2 against 1. I'm gonna have to get a United fan in here to try and level it out a bit, yeah. But Rashford was in the combo for most improved player, I think, as well. But I was not wrong. Like you can't go from being that last season to top scorer for us and doing the whole celebration thing and everyone loving him again without improving massively. But I actually went for Varane, and I went for Varane because I've got to be honest. Last season, I tried defending him as much as I can when I would hear these outrageous shouts from you lot talking about White versus Varane, who was a better signing, and sullying Varane's name with Ben White, who I rate. But come on, Varane's won Champions Leagues, mate. Ben White's won nothing. But I think this season,
is Scott Carson.
Exactly, legendary keeper. Don't talk down on Scott Carson, mate. They gave him another contract extension. They rate him. But Varane has been good this season, and I know a lot of that credit can be split with Martinez and other people, kind of helping him and kind of bringing him along and kind of he looks more like the Real Madrid Varane that I saw before, and I'd never seen him fist pumping and doing all this like proper celebrating tackles and all that. I think of that one against he cleared it off the line from Lewandowski against Barcelona in like the last minute of that Europa game, and he was out here fist pumping and chest bumping Lisandro Martinez and all these different players, and it's like kind of just it was a great example of how he's turned it around. So I went for a bit of a different angle with those two players, but I think Rashford's a tap-in, I guess, for this category for United because he was terrible last season and he's been really good. But I think Varane's been the low-key one that's a good partnership, I think, going forward. And I think he's made a big improvement because he was definitely a flop last season, but he's looking more like himself. But what about you, Johns? Who are you going to go for?
So I mean, for Arsenal, I went for Xhaka just because. So the way that I thought of it was not just last season, but just generally since they've been at the club, or for the majority of the time they've been there, how good have they been, and how big of a difference have they been this season? And I said Xhaka for that because, I mean, we talk about him, swearing at the fans, taking off his shirt, and all of that, but he's never been like a star for us. In the 7 years, he's always kind of been middle of the roadish, and he's dipped a lot and then gone back a little bit back to the median line and then dipped back down. And I feel like, this season he was significantly better than I've ever seen him for Arsenal. And I mean, performance-wise, I think he was very, very consistent. I still think the emotional stuff that he does doesn't help us as a team, and him as kind of one of the more senior players at the team, I feel like shouldn't be doing that. But I do think he is by far like the most improved player at the team. With Odegaard, I get what you mean. At Arsenal, he hasn't shown anything like that, and probably hasn't shown too much at Real Madrid either, because of just the fact he hasn't had a massive chance all the time and he had to go out on loan and so on and so forth. But there was always kind of the feeling that he was going to be really good. So for that, it's more just like he's doing what he should be doing. So I didn't see him as a massive improvement necessarily, just more about him meeting the standard that we all kind of set for him. And I think that's also the reason why I didn't go for Rashford. Rashford was one of the ones I was thinking of, but Rashford has also shown at many times. I disagree with AO here that I think he is a very, very high quality player. And I do think if you can get his form to become his quality, then he's a world beater. But I didn't choose him because he's kind of shown similar-ish form before. He's got, 20 goals a season, or he's got goals in seasons before. I know Man United had been in the mud quite a lot for some of those seasons, but generally speaking, he's shown a similar-ish level to what he did this season before. So I went for Luke Shaw as your most improved player because, I mean, I know people have always said, yeah, injuries and, he's always been had a lot of potential, been really good. I feel like this season's really the first season I've seen him proper really show it. And again, I put some of the, not blame, but some of the reason why down to just general improvements you've made in and around him, right? Like Casemiro, Martinez, the whole system is making Luke Shaw play a lot better. And the fact that you're putting him like centre back and trusting him to play centre back in certain circumstances shows to me that he's somebody that I've never seen that level from before, that I'm starting to see he's getting better and better. I still don't agree with Ant when he says that he's the best left back in the league. But I do think that he has been really, really improved for the Man United team. And I think he's been part of the reason why you guys are good this season, right? Like, we have to talk about your defenders because at the end of the day, those are them, or your defensive midfielders as well. But that's the reason why you're in the position you're in today. Because like we said before, you don't score that many goals. So it's got to be about the defenders. And I think, Luke Shaw, still not the best left back in the league, but most improved player at Man United for sure. All right, let's quickly move into the next one. So signing of the season. I think we've both got teams that have made quite a few signings. So there's quite a few players to choose from. We'll start off with Ayo, just because, obviously there's a couple of shouts for Arsenal, I think. But what have you been thinking?
I've gone. You most likely you're not gonna like me for this because I've gone for my player of the season because he's technically a new signing to me, Big Saliba, because he wasn't here last year. I've had to throw a curveball.
You're just cheating. You're just gonna
I've had
put
to throw a
Saliba for
curveball
every
now.
single one of your
I've
awards.
had to, because I can't say. I know you can say Jesus, obviously, for impact, for goals scored, but again, I think his fall off has been his second half of the season just hasn't been what. Yeah, I can't write home about it. Zinchenko, yeah, more again, bit of he's good. Obviously, what he did for us, he kind of changed that role in the left back, coming to that inverted wing back. But again, I think the mistake he made a lot of mistakes, and that team talk thing he gave against, I think it was, who was it, Southampton or Liverpool, I don't think, whoever it was against, that just annoyed me again as well. I can't shake that image of him trying to G the plans of an older guy telling him like calm down. Like when your captains tell you to calm down, like we don't need this. Like, that's a big. And so for me, Saliba, because we didn't have him last year, he was technically out on loan. It's technically his first season at the club. In reality, like we've had him for a while, but we've not played him. For me, he's my son of the season, and I can't really. I know it's not what you want to hear. It's a bit of a cop out, but I just can't say I can't. Okay, big. His impact's been immense, and then for United, I think who did I have that actually? You might. I hope we didn't put. Actually, I put Casemiro. Same again. I think impact on the team. I think you guys. To be fair, I think you could say Lissandro as well in terms of just players that just came in and you kind of changed the mentality. I think when you sign players like that, you just sign that just kind of big that makes your club feel better when you sign a winner. I think what we hoped you would get was Zinchenko and Jesus. United kind of got that with Casemiro, and like in terms you get a winner, you get that mentality, you get that type of that just kind of brings that aura to the club in a way. And I think we thought we got that with Jesus Zinchenko, but as we can see, no trophies to show for it, just as of yet right now. So Saliba, technicality, Saliba's a technicality, Casemiro for United.
What
Don't
a
hate
cop out. All right, let's
Don't
move on.
hate me.
Anthony,
Don't
what do
hate.
you reckon, mate?
I stuck to the rules, and I didn't pick Saliba, but I understand the shout because that's a sticky one because he obviously he hasn't been playing for you, and I don't think he had any first team appearances for you since he like officially signed. He's been on loan all the time, so you could kind of find a loophole and do a little Jimmy Carr settings on that one. But I think I went for Zinchenko because it's hard, man. Because I don't know, I don't think your new signings have been your best players. And if you stick to the rules on this one, it left me with Jesus, Zinchenko. I think Trossard's had an impact, I guess you could say. But I think Zinchenko's been more pivotal to the style change. And I think he's done more good than he's done bad by quite a way. Like, don't get me wrong, he's jarring. Like, he does a lot of things that are very jarring. Like the little, huddle thing he did a couple times. That was hard to watch. And when he makes mistakes, he's almost got a bit of like Trent in him. He looks real bad when he gets done. I think of when Trent nutsed him in the Liverpool game. I think of a couple of other errors when he's thrown in some clangers, and he normally, he throws in some bad ones when it happens. But I still think importance to the team and the shape and the way that you've played and the good games he's had. I think he's in the left back of the season convos despite his mistakes. He's not quite Roberto Carlos, but he's a very good left back. So and I think he's probably your signing of the season. But like I said, it's hard for United. I'm not going to chat too much about it. It's obviously Casemiro. Like Lissandro's been good, but Cass, like Ayo said, he's been a game changer. Like he is what you guys thought you were getting from Man City, but some logic would have told you that, like Zinchenko played for periods for City, Jesus played for periods for City, but they were never like certified starters, so there was some doubt. When we got Casemiro, I was shocked. I was like, why is he coming to join us? He's been pivotal in that Real Madrid team that's won all that kind of stuff, all the Champions Leagues and everything, and he's a starter, and he's like clearly, if not the best DM in the world, top 3 in the world DM. Why is he coming to us? We're in Europa League, mate. Like, what's going on? It didn't feel right, but he's actually delivered. So I think it's definitely Casemiro. But what about you, John?
Yeah,
you gonna cop out like Ayo, or are you gonna go for a real?
No.
Real
So
silence?
for Man United, like you guys said, Casemiro is going to be the one. And the reason why I didn't choose Martinez for that one is because with Casemiro, I feel like he was not your first choice. And obviously you were going for De Jong for so long, and then you kind of just turned around and got Casemiro kind of suddenly. No one was really expecting it. And for that reason is why I put him aside in the season, because he wasn't your first choice. Kind of later in the transfer window, he was one of the ones I think out of all of your signings that wouldn't work out because of the circumstances around it. And I think, he kind of completely put that to bed and has come through certified winner, great mentality, and made your team a lot better. So I think that's clear to me. I think for Arsenal, I'm going to go with Zinchenko as well. I'm not going to go with Saliba just because, mate, we didn't sign him this season. But yeah, no,
Read the bylaws. Read the bylaws.
Let's turn it into Harvey Specter out here. What are you talking about? I'm going to go for Zinchenko just because, I think he has made quite a significant difference to our team. Again, like I said before, the systems that we play, the systems that Man City play, the whole idea of playing out from the back, it's difficult for defenders, man. It's really easy to get done. And it's really difficult because now you have to be good at something you never really had to be good at before. So the fact that he is really good on the ball and kind of plays this like inverted role and can function as a centre mid, and he's not Trent levels of bad when we're talking about actually being able to defend. Like, he's not that bad. He's obviously not the best defender I've ever seen in my life, but he's not Trent levels. So I
disagree, Jonty.
Well, shut up.
No, honestly, no. I think Anthony's right there in terms of defending wise. He gets beat one.
You're putting him on Trent levels, though. That's the disrespect you're going to put on Zinchenko's name.
It's not disrespectful. I just do not think he's a good defender. Attacking wise is amazing, but defending wise, he abandons that part of his job completely.
I'll go even worse. I'll build on your slander for Zinchenko. He's just as bad as Trent defensively, but he's not as good going forward. So
Shocking.
so
Terrible.
but still he's your signing of the season because of the functionality that he adds to that position and what Arteta needs. But I agree with you. It's hard. I do feel I enjoy. Trust me, Jon knows. I enjoy stabbing Liverpool players as much as I can. Yeah, they're shit. But let's be real. Trent has got a hard role. That role is hard um, because you're basically going to have to. You should be judged just on your attacking because of the reality of where they play or where they have the ball most and what their actual job kind of leans more towards. But because it's still technically like a right back or a left back in this case, when you don't have the ball, people expect you to be able to defend. But both of them players don't really know how to defend very
He's
well.
not, no, but he's not on the level of Trent. I mean, what? Because he's getting nuts by Trent, who we all agree is a really good attacker, right? That's the
It's
only
not
part
one
of his role.
incident.
I know it's not one incident, but there's definitely nowhere near as many incidents as Trent. Since they've moved him into like this more inverted role and playing him more like, and his defensive qualities are not getting found out as much. There were real basic things like position wise that he was doing earlier this season. How dare you put Zinchenko on that level? I'm not going to let you rattle me, but how dare you? All right, we're going to move on before I get rattled further. Actually, a good topic. I think this is one where we're going to have quite a lot of agreement. Actually, flop of the season. So, who do we think? It can be anyone. Who do we think has been the biggest flop for our teams, whether it comes to like expectations versus how they actually turned out or just terrible performances? Who do we think has been a flop? I think we'll start with you, Anthony, because I think your namesake might be the winner of this one. What do you reckon for Arsenal United? Who's the biggest flop?
I don't know who you're talking about. For Arsenal, I've gone for Fabio Vieira because I expected things from him. So this goes back to what I was talking about. You know, little FM, little culty things you've got going on, and I was on Fabio Vieira for a couple of games already, for a couple of seasons. Wonder kid from Porto, thinking, all right, he turns out decent on FM at least, and I was expecting big things, and I actually thought it made a lot of sense to go to Arsenal and be like a backup to Odegaard, come in certain games, and stylistically, I thought he actually fit the way you guys were going to play. But he's looked absolutely lightweight, and he's really not. I don't know if he's going to be. He's going to have to going to have to hit the gym and like work on trying to catch up to speed with the Prem because he just looks lost. And I'm not going to bite on the whole Rob Holding thing because I'm sure you're going to go into that later. But I feel bad for him. You know, you got to rate the hairline. It's beautiful. He's made that's the biggest improvement, most improved player, Rob Holding, just for the hairline. He's got to be in there with a shout.
Yeah, Rob Holding's hairline and Casemiro's nose. Those are the two.
Nah, Casemiro's nose is the flop of the season, I'll admit. But United, I'm going to hold the same energy that I hold for old floppy haired twat on the other side of the city, and say that Jadon Sancho is the flop of the season for us. Because the stats that he's put up, and more than anything, it's what Ayo talked about before, his performances and not willing to take players on. Like I couldn't see up until recently how he's gonna like adapt to the Prem. Like I couldn't see it. Like there's loads of like screenshots of Sancho isolating a defender one on one, like just acres of space behind the defender for a winger to attack. And I know we talked about, maybe you can't translate Bundesliga over to the Prem, but that is those are the scenarios he was getting into in the Bundesliga. Loads of teams play with a high line. He was able to exploit space and trickery to get past players and either score or assist. And he just hasn't looked like doing it recently. So I'm hopeful that this is going to be a clanger on my behalf and that he's starting to play well. But I can't slander Jack Grealish 2 weeks in a row for being absolutely shite and not playing well and not impacting the team, and then deny that Jadon Sancho hasn't been similar, at least maybe incrementally better than Grealish, but it's been very close. when you're
incrementally
paying
better than
7.
Grealish. Oh, you're smoking something.
No, come on, mate. No, I'm looking at the whole time. Like stats wise, he's got better stats than Grealish over the time he's been at United and Grealish has been at City. But I would say, obviously, Grealish's last 2-3 months, Sancho hasn't had those 2-3 months. So, it's close. It's a close call. But I would say Sancho is probably the flop. And yeah, my namesake's not in the picture. He's only been here 5 minutes. I don't know what you're talking about.
Shocking. Io, let's move on. Let's move on from that bollocks before I lose it.
Well, agreement with, sadly, with a Man United fan when it comes to Fabio Vieira. I just think, disappointing. I think obviously a hard situation, but I just don't think he's done what was needed for him as like a replacement. When he comes into the team, he's just the drop off from Odegaard to him, or even if he takes over from Xhaka sometimes and playing centre mid, it just is not the same. And I think it's frustrating as well because I think he's played over like big Emil Smith Rowe as well, so I think he's taking minutes from us, and I think Smith Rowe would do a lot better. So I think Fabio Vieira was the obvious flop for us, unfortunately. And I think because I went with the kind of, I guess, players signed, but I think obviously you can still be a flop if you're not just signed this year. But for United, I went with big Weghorst. I've never seen a player just annoy the life out of me more and just be so used. Like I'm a
Big
tall person.
Weghorst.
Big Weghorst. I get it's hard to be agile. It's hard to be mobile when you're that tall. But I've just never seen a man do so much and offer so little more than Weghorst, because I remember seeing the penalties in I think the FA Cup, and he's running down doing a celebration like knee slide in front of the fans. Like the passion's there. I love passion. Passion's great, but you need to back up passion with some sort of ability on the football pitch. And I just think he just offers not very much. And I think to have no goals as a striker since you signed that is a big red flag. And I think. Can't fault passion, but you need to have some sort of ability. So for me, big flop is Weghorst. And
there is some passion. There is no aggression.
It's a red flag, man. It's a red flag to have passion with no end product, man. It's a red flag.
I mean, speaking of passion and no end product, I'll get onto mine now. For Man United, I'm going to start off the namesake on this podcast, Antony, 80 million. He's shite. He's got bloody super noodles for hair. He's useless. He cuts in. He's like a real like B&M version of Robin. Just like absolutely shocking. And maybe he'll come good in the future, but nah, he's shocking. And the fact that you give him so much time, he gets on the ball, like he gets on a pitch all the time, and he's just useless. So he's gonna get it for me for Man United. And for Arsenal, I'm gonna go with Lokonga. So the reason I'm going to go for Lokonga is I get what you're saying about Fabio Vieira. I defo get what you're saying in that regard. The only issue with that is in most circumstances when Fabio Vieira has played in the position that he actually is supposed to be playing in, he's looked pretty good. Right? So I think when he plays in that Odegaard type role, like for example in the Europa League, he's played there a couple of times, he looked really good. In that role, he looks good because he tries he tries expensive type passes, he tries killer balls, he tries these kinds of things. Putting him in Xhaka's position, I just don't think is fair on him. Whereas Lokonga, I know we haven't seen a lot of him, but when we've played him in the position that he's supposed to play, he's been useless. And so I hoped that he would be better than he is. And also, I mean, like the whole Amazon documentary last year, and he's talking to, was it Nketiah? And he's like, he seems a bit stroppy because he's not playing and all that. And then to come out with like some of the performances he put in, I know he hasn't been playing a lot, so I don't want to be too harsh on him, but to then come out and put in some of the performances he put in, because in my opinion, that defensive midfield role, Thomas Partey ain't bulletproof. You can get into that role. And I think had he put in better performances, no, shut up. Let me finish.
He's also been on loan since January, for God's sake.
No, I know but why has he been on loan since January? When you loan somebody out mid-season, that's telling you something, right?
You guys aren't taking this serious,
mate. If honestly, you loan someone out mid-season, he's shocking. No, so he is the flop of the season because he was so bad that we had to get rid of him halfway through it. that's literally that shows you that our manager, we didn't have faith in him to even keep him in the squad for the whole season.
Mate.
No, it's not Vieira,
mate. Lokonga left because of the reasons that you said. Like, both of the reasons that you said.
Well, all right,
he hasn't been good, and he's probably been rocking a boat wanting to leave and get more game time. I don't think it's solely down to the fact that he's been horseshit. And I don't think there's huge expectations. So when I'm factoring in choices behind this, the reason why I picked Sancho is because there was big expectations, and he hasn't lived up to it. Same with Vieira. There was not to the same level, but there was more expectations.
There's a lot of expectation on Antony too. That's why you paid 80 million.
No, I agree with the Antony one, but he's had, like, when I compare them, I think they've both been equally shit, if not Antony's probably more frustrating because he does a lot of good things and then he does really bad things at the end, which makes you forget about the good things that he's doing because he does terrible things. And Sancho does not much. So it's really choosing between, like, which is better.
They're both
Sancho's had more time. He's had more time to get better.
Yes, but we didn't expect him to be great this season, though. That's the point. The flop of the season is our expectations were higher than they managed to achieve, right? It's like he massively, with Sancho, off of last season and off of whatever he's done, no one expected him to turn out and come out and be nuts this season. So for him to just continue to flop, in my mind, doesn't make him the flop of the season. But if you buy someone for 80 million, you're expecting them to be good, right? Like when we were talking about Grealish, right? You always get on Grealish because the first 2 seasons he was useless. He would have been their flop of the season because they paid 100 million for him. You've just gone and paid 80 million for this Don, and he's been useless as well. So that's why I didn't choose Sancho, because I expected him to be as actually he's even probably exceeded my expectations this season. And for Fabio Vieira, yeah, of course I expected him to be better than he has been. But I also expected Sambi Lokonga to be another option in our midfield. And he was literally so bad, we got rid of him mid-season. And we could have done with somebody like that in that kind of DM-ish role to come in and when Xhaka wasn't playing well or was injured or whatever, to come into that role instead of trying to put Fabio Vieira, who, as you said, is going to get weights because he's about 55 kilograms and about 5'5" tall. So I don't expect him to come into Xhaka's role and be able to do a good job. But if you put him where he plays, where he should be playing in kind of Odegaard's tennis role, he's much better. And that's just the big thing. So I think I expected more from Lokonga. Right? He's not completely new to the team. He's been in and around it enough that you'd expect him to be a little bit better than he was.
So I'll ask Ayo that then. Did you expect anything from Lokonga?
I think start of the season, I think everyone expected Lokonga to, I guess, to be competing with being a backup option for Partey. Like he was disappointing when he came in. The drop off in quality was like it wasn't a surprise he got loaned out, but I couldn't call him a flop just because of the fact, like he's gone. But I do get Jonty's thinking. I do get the logic behind it. I do like the expectation, what you expect from a player, and them not fulfilling it. And that is, I think. That's why I'm going to change my United one to Antony based on Jonty's compelling argument, to be fair, because I guess we didn't expect much from Wout Weghorst, and he hasn't
going to do the Mourinho celebration, mate.
Yeah, so...
No, I agree with you, though. I agree with you. The Weghorst shout, I get it, because he's been abysmal, like statistically abysmal. He's not scored, he's not assisted. He's basically just been pressing people and kissing the football before he gives it to Solly Marsh and doing knee slides and doing Adebayor celebrations, running across the pitch and all that. But yeah, he had zero expectation. Like he's a free loan from Burnley, for fuck's sake. Like we're not expecting him to do anything really. It's because we don't have any money and there's all the uncertainty around the club that we didn't go and buy a proper striker. So I don't disagree with Johnson in terms of it's definitely between Sancho, I think, and Antony. And I think you could easily choose either one of them. Like I'm not arguing that Antony's been amazing. He's, like I said, he does a lot of terrible things on the pitch. And when you pay a lot for him, you're going to have that. Like he was massively overpriced. We should have got him for half the amount, or maybe even less than that. But we're terrible when it comes to transfers. So we just hand out money like nobody's business. Fred for 50 million when they only wanted 20. Lissandro cost almost 50 million, and I'm pretty sure we could have got him for 30 if we'd bought him like a month earlier. Antony for 85 or whatever it is. Like, they're terrible pieces of business, but I think they're more signs I've seen from Antony in this season than I saw from Sancho last season and this season combined. Like, I've only seen the last 2-3 games where Sancho looks, somewhat like a useful player for us, and Antony's had little glimpses in between the pure shit of this season where he's looked okay. So I think it's a toss up. But they're both not been good enough.
Yeah. All right. I think we'll leave the end of the season awards there. I mean, please feel free to comment down below if I'm being an absolute muppet and talking out my arse. But I think we'll get onto a very controversial topic that I've heard a lot of people talking about, including a man that looks like Jar Jar Binks, about who's had the better season. And so I think now we can actually somewhat have that conversation. I know that there's a final coming up, which will make a bit of a difference. But who do we think has had the better season? Arsenal coming second, challenging Man City, or Man United coming third, winning at least one cup, possibly a second if they get through a very, very difficult obstacle in Man City. Who do we think has had the better season? I'll start off with Antony because I think he might have a slightly different take.
I don't know if I will, man, because the honest truth is, a lot of United fans are going to say our season because they'll look at like silverware conveniently now as meaning a lot more than top four or title charge or whatever. But that only makes sense within like the United kind of progress and that kind of context. If we had won a trophy in the last 6 years, I don't think we'd be viewing the Carabao Cup and third as a better season than, an actual title charge or leading the league for 93% or whatever you guys led it for. So I think the truth is Arsenal have had a better season because you're ahead of us in your progress. But at the same time, I can understand why United fans are going to say we've had a better season. That's speaking right now with us with one trophy and one final and third. If we won the FA Cup and you got 2 trophies and you finished third, then it becomes a little bit more difficult because you're stacking up trophies in one season, and we would have beaten City in the final of the FA Cup and stopped them from doing the treble. And there's other bits and bobs that are involved in it, which make it slightly harder to still argue that finishing second and bottling it is better than winning two trophies. But at the moment, I would lean towards Arsenal's had a better season because you've got yourself in the position that most people would want to be. It's not quite as bad as, for example, Dortmund yesterday, which was catastrophic. Bottle size, that's a 2 litre bottle, that one. And you guys are just on the 750 ml bottle against City. So I think, to be very objective, I would say Arsenal have had a better season. But yeah, hold the beer until whenever it's June the 3rd or whatever, until most likely we get slapped. But if we don't and we win it, then I would probably change my vote and say United have had a better season.
Ayo, how about you? Do you see things the same way?
You know what? Obviously, I was thinking it, I think, from as you said, yeah, progress wise, Arsenal, I think a bit further ahead, obviously, title charge. But I think, yeah, once you kind of just put things into perspective, I know I remember being back as when Tottenham were doing the same thing kind of thing. They weren't winning nothing, but they're finishing higher. And then Tottenham fans would be finishing, we had the better season than Arsenal, but we'd be like, we won the FA Cup. We had a better season. But as I think, but personally, which is crazy, I'd actually take United season currently over Arsenal season. Just because of the silverware, the fact you got another final coming up, and we're both in the same competition by the end of the year in Champions League. So
you're saying United have had a better season?
If we're just gonna put things down to the bare minimum, what you expect from the season, like what you want when you start a season, what you're getting into the season for. You're going in to win something. you're getting into qualify for Champions League, and you're going on to kind of see progress. Obviously, I think Arsenal, yeah, we're a bit further ahead. We had a title challenge, which is good, obviously. But when you come down to the bare bones of it, we've got enough to show for it apart from Champions League, which is great because we didn't expect to go. I guess we expect the top four. We didn't expect to come second or challenging for the title. But United now can say that we're in two finals. We finished third, and Ten Hag can maybe say that we have seen there's something. As you said, the defensive record's been immense as well. So there are like some sort of building blocks in the future that they could, if they show their ownership, God knows United could be a force next year, and they can say that we've got two trophies. Like if they beat City, then that's the double technically, obviously, and then Arsenal, we can all we can say is we've got Champions League and we nearly pushed City to the title, and then we bottled it. So I think it hurts to say. I think it's ridiculous to say we didn't have a better season, but I think when you just in the grand scheme of things, if I was a fan and if I didn't know both teams and you gave me said pick Team A or Team B season, I think I'd go with United season. But yeah, personally.
Including getting slapped 7-0, yeah?
Obviously, the results ain't good. Some of the results aren't pretty. But when it comes down to the end of the season, if you told me I've got a chance to win two trophies and the same qualification Champions League, or I bottle the league, like bottling what we bottled this year, that's gonna sting for a very long time. And yeah, so I think honestly, if you put Team A, Team B, I don't know the teams, I didn't know the manager, I'll take United season.
All right, I'm conflicted here because I kind of sit in the middle. I think if Man United win the FA Cup, they're clear. They've had a better season. Just because of the fact that again they would have to beat City to do that. But I do kind of think to myself from beginning of the season, from what we expected last year to what we actually got, I would say Arsenal have massively outperformed the expectations, right? Like if you look at this season week by week and where we were and so on and so forth, of course, it's a disappointing season even, right? You'd say, oh, we've had a terrible season if you take into account the last few results and how we bottled it, right? But if you take into account from the beginning of the season to the end of the season where we expected to be versus where we actually are, I think we've massively outperformed. I think with Man United, similarly, you weren't expected to do what you've done, but I think a lot of people would say like who's been the biggest shock of the season in terms of their performances. I definitely think Arsenal would be the ones, and so I do agree with the point that at the end of the day, like in 10 years' time, no one's going to remember or no one's going to care about coming second. And they're probably not going to remember the nuance of how the season actually went and whether it was a close second or it was a really far away second. And in 10 years' time, they probably will look back at Man United's trophies and be like, yeah, we won the Carabao Cup in 2022 or in 2023 or whatever, right? So I get from that perspective. And I do think from a progress perspective, like if you compare Erik ten Hag's first season at United versus Arteta's of the same, again, I think ten Hag's had a better first season. So I'm kind of conflicted. I think I'm going to give it to Arsenal as things stand today, just because of how much we've outperformed what the expectations were. And I think the fact that everyone got ahead of themselves, right, Arsenal fans included, shouldn't be the reason why we say we've had a bad season or Man United have had a better season than us, right? We put ourselves onto such a pedestal because of how well we were playing. And we were playing really, really well. Like until that run of games where we just started messing everything up, people were like, what is going on here? Like they had no idea what was going on with Arsenal doing what they were doing, right? And yeah, fair enough, we didn't actually beat City in any of the fixtures that we had against them, including the Cup. But against other teams and against other top four teams, we were playing in a City-like way. And we were, doing really well. Obviously, Man United managed to beat us once. But, generally speaking, I think Arsenal have outperformed massively what we expected to do. And I think Man United, if they look back on how they performed versus what they got at the end of it, I think you'd be happy with what you got. Because I didn't see anything to say that you guys were really, 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 really good this season. Your defense, of course, was really good, and Rashford carried you for a lot of parts of the season. But if you look back at the actual performances, I think you will be happy with how many trophies you got based off of the quality of the football that you played. Whereas I think Arsenal will be disappointed with the lack of trophies we got based off of the quality of the football that we played. Anyone disagree? I mean, on the topic of the FA Cup final, I know it's a little bit early, but anyone want to make a crazy prediction now?
It's not early, man, because I guess the next episode we'll put out would be after the FA Cup finals.
True.
Ended. So I'm gonna. It's such a hard one because I don't know if I want to like reverse jinx it and say City are going to slap us like 4-0, with the hope that we're going to somehow, ball's going to bounce off Harry Maguire's big head and deflect in or something like that, and we sneak a 1-0 or 2-1. But I don't think, and I'm touching all the wood, that we're going to get absolutely battered in the final. But I think it will be either a game that City win 2-1 or 2-0, or we win 2-1, or 1-0 or something like that. And I just think it's going to be really tight. I don't know if you guys can remember a Wembley final, whether a Carabao Cup or FA Cup, that's been a good game. And where there's been bags of goals and it's been end to end and it's been really entertaining. Like every cup final I can remember has been maybe the early ones, the early Arsenal ones, the early Arsenal.
Yeah, the Arsenal Villa one was crazy. That was a
and there was the Arsenal Hull match was good as well.
Arsenal Hull as well, yeah.
2-0
exactly.
down and you won 3-2, Aaron Ramsey. But I mean, in recent years, they've been like Newcastle United wasn't a good game. The Liverpool Chelsea snooze fests from last year were terrible, both of them. And I think prior to that, it was just City winning, pretty straightforward matches in the FA Cup. Or obviously you guys with Aubameyang and that. I guess those games were entertaining, but they weren't. I mean, they weren't terrible games, but they also weren't the best games you'll ever see. So I don't think Wembley is an easy place to play, especially for us on a big pitch against City. I think it's going to be really difficult. But I don't think you're going to find either team battering the other. And I think I'm interested to see how City are going to play it, because if you think about it technically, the FA Cup's the least important of the trophies they're going for. Like they need to win the Champions League. If they won the double, I still think it would be a great achievement for them, because I think breaking that European duck is going to be something that's going to be pivotal for their whole club changing, and the view of the club changing in the rest of the world. And they'll enter conversations that, for example, you man aren't in because you've never won Champions League, where they can talk about the top clubs winning certain trophies. Well, I mean, it's true, isn't it? Bottling, goes back quite a few years with you guys, yeah. But I think the FA Cup shouldn't be their biggest priority, right? So you might see Ortega start. You might see a few slightly funky team selections. It doesn't mean that they're going to have a smaller chance or a lower chance of battering us. They could still batter us with a lot of their rotational players, or Mahrez coming in for Bernardo, or Foden coming in for Grealish. Those are still top quality players, but I think it gives us a chance. So I'm going to go for United 2-1, but I'm being hopeful. That's a hit and hope, that one.
Yeah, that much is clear. Aya, what do you reckon?
I think obviously I don't want City to win the treble. I also don't want United to be happy. So I'm torn. So obviously both situations are not ideal. But I think, as you said, I think the most important trophy for City is the Champions League. So I'm torn. I don't want to win at all. But if lesser of two evil was to win the FA Cup and then lose the Champions League, best case scenario is United beat them in best case scenario is United beat them in the FA Cup, and then that knocks their confidence. Then they go on to lose to Inter, and then I'm happy. Everyone's happy, and
he
it's
just wants the downfall of City. He wants to watch them
that
burn.
I can't stress to you how much I would not be happy if they win the treble. So yeah, ideally it could be they could dominate the final against United, and then they lose. So that's a confidence shaker. United fans might feel happy. Obviously, that means they have a better season than Arsenal, which isn't good. But then we come back next year, we win the Prem, everything's forgotten, and then yeah. So fingers so I'd say results wise, I could see either 1-1 extra time, and then winner in 115th minute or something. But better if there's some penalty heartbreak, then that will knock their confidence getting into the Champions League final. And then, but yeah, I think 1-1 and then extra time and penalties, and yeah, well, I think United might just edge it.
Wow. All right, so I think, mate, you are not playing the long game enough. So I'm about to teach you something. So I want City to slap them, and I think they will. I think they're gonna. I think they're gonna slap you 4-0. Right. I don't think you're gonna score. And if you do score, I think it's going to be Weghorst. It's going to be a real weird story where like you're going to get like an absolute Makeda type goal. And then I think they'll go on to win the Champions League as well, comfortably. And then I hope Pep will have felt like he's completed it. And he'll be like, yeah, I don't really care anymore now. I've done the treble, which puts me up there with like what? How many other teams done that? One. Just United, right? You're the only other team that's ever done that. That's one. He'll have won the Champions League, so he's broken the duck of not being able to win the Champions League outside of Barcelona. And then on top of that, he'll be losing some of the players that were key to him winning some of the stuff he's won this season, right? Like end of season Zidane, Mr. Ilkay Gundogan. And I think he'll just give it up and say, like, yeah, we'll let someone else win next year, and hopefully that will be us. So I'm playing the long game out here. If he doesn't win these next two trophies and he has another chip on his shoulder, he doesn't look like the type of guy to me that's going to be like, yeah, all right, I'm just going to run away. No, he's going to do Fergie settings and be here for like 30 years, slapping all of us because of that 1 year that he couldn't do it. So I need him to get all of the Infinity Stones and then just please maybe go back to Barcelona even. Like he'll go back to Barcelona because he feels all sorry for them. And then they'll start slapping everyone in the Champions League and so on and so forth. So I'm playing the long game, and I hope and I believe that Man City will slap you.
This is straight Netflix writers' room sessions right here. John's talking.
Exactly. This is Drive to Survive, mate. This is Drive to Survive. This is Toto Wolff long-term thinking, mate.
This is narratives galore, but 90% of them bullshit, I think, because I think he's going to stay. Like, I think if he wins a treble, he's not going to leave. I'm not saying he's going to leave, but he's going to phone it in until the end of his contract and leave. But him phoning it in, he will still win the Prem and you guys won't have a chance. So
would you rather have him motivated because he's just bottled it, or would you rather have him just finished it and he's got nothing left to do and he'll just tinker around for a while?
Bro, I would prefer him to not have trophies and he can have like gallons of motivation. I don't give a fuck. Like, I care about the trophies. I don't want him to have the trophies. So yes, I want us to beat him.
Yeah, that's just because you're trying to keep the treble record, though.
No, I don't. Yeah, partly that also, but we've got a chance to win a trophy as well. Look, if it wasn't us in the final of the FA Cup, I would care less about I'd be praying. I'd be an Inter fan. I'd be whoever's in the final against City in the FA Cup, unless it was Liverpool. I'd be their fan, and I'll be supporting them to beat them. But because we're in the final, like, I want that trophy, and I don't want them to have it. And then I'll pull out my Inter kit from my drawer, and I want Inter to batter him in the Champions League.
Martinez, yeah.
I don't care who scored. I wouldn't give a shit if Javier Zanetti comes back out of retirement and like manages to score last minute winner against them. That will just make it sweeter. I just want them to lose every single final. Let him get motivated. He can come back next season. If he wins the Prem again, big whoop. He doesn't win the Champions League. He doesn't win or break more records, because I think he's going to be here for a while. So I don't think it changes if he wins these or not, to be honest.
That's the thing, Johnny. I think the long game, you got it the wrong way around, mate. If he loses all
No,
of
so I'm
these,
not saying that he's going to leave because he's won it. I'm just saying that I don't want him to be motivated and go out and buy everybody else and like feel like he has to go and do all of this stuff. I want him to feel like he's completed it, so he'll move on. Because that's kind of what
nah,
happened
but
at Barcelona, right? He was like, "I've completed this. I'm gone. I
but
need
think
him
of
to do that. Let him go to like the
think of
Saudi
the
Pro League or something."
think of the hangover this, the confidence shaker this would be if they lose everything. Like they will not be the same team come September or
You say
August.
that, okay? I take that point on board. What happened with Real Madrid last year?
What do you mean about Real Madrid? They got nearly got back to the Champions League final again, and they've lost to La Liga. But
But
that was just
no, but I mean, like, what happened with Man City and Real Madrid?
yeah, exactly.
They
Madrid
bottled
took them
it,
out.
right? So Man
Hmm.
City bottled it from being a up, and look how good they are now. They went and bought Haaland, and look how good they are now. You want that to happen again? I guarantee you, then somehow Fabrizio Romano tomorrow is going to be like, "Yep, Jude Bellingham deal to Real Madrid is off. He's coming to Man City. They're going to pay 150 million for him." I don't need that, right? I need him to be happy, chilling, and just phone it in. Like, let him play Cole Palmer. Let him leave Jude Bellingham alone. Let him just be happy with his life and phone it in. You don't need him angry again, buying up all the Infinity Stones, man.
Bro, I don't know what you've been on some good stuff today. I don't know if you've been drinking or something before the session, before this
Well,
ep, because
I'm a
you
visionary,
you
man.
you've been you're creating some EastEnders plots in your head, man, for all of this stuff going on. Like they've bottled it quite a few years in the Champions League, and they proceeded the next year to bottle it even bigger. So I'm expecting if they lose this one, like Io said, that's a bottle job. How can they lose to Inter in the final?
No, it is a
I
bottle
don't
job.
gamble, so I agree. I think they're gonna keep. It's like dying of like a million little cuts. They're gonna have another cut come in and be like, "You guys can't. We can't do it in Europe. We haven't got the heritage. We can sign Haaland, Bellingham. We can sign everyone. We can sign Prime Ronaldo, and we're not gonna do it because we just aren't that club, and we don't have the cojones to do it."
Who's creating
And
narratives now, mate?
no, I just think like those other narratives exist. They've lost and bottled it again. Let them keep bottling it. It's fine. Like it's better. Next season they'll be shaken more by it. And I think then you got to pray that the FA come in and slap down some charges on them and bring them down again. And you just keep waiting until that gets worse and worse and worse. And they're back playing Port Vale and that lot in League Two. That's what we want.
Paulo one top settings. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
get it. No, I get where you're coming from. I think that it'll play out a little differently. Anyway, I think we'll wrap it up here. It's been a long pod, and we've got some absolutely shocking shouts from these two Muppets. So that'll clip up real nicely. We'll get some views there. But anyway, so if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music or any of the audio platforms, the podcasting platforms, please do follow us. Please give us a 5-star review if you can. If you like it, it will help us massively. And if you're watching any of the clips or the full thing on YouTube, please feel free to subscribe, to like, to comment, share down below, whatever you've got to do. If you disagree, if you agree, let us know in the comments. It would be great to get a bit more engagement and to see if I'm literally just going nuts or if anybody else out there in the world agrees with me. Thank you very much to Antony and to Ayo.
We've got a question for him, don't we?
Oh, we do. Yes. Before we wrap up, we've got one question. This one will catch you off hand or off guard. As you can tell, Io, we are Asian people. And so part of the kind of one of the things we like to do on this podcast is to ask our guests who is their favorite East or Southeast Asian player of all time. So when we talk about that, we're talking, Anthony, what did you go for? You went for Park Ji-sung, right? Yeah. I went for Nakamura for Celtic. Let's see, Io. Who do you think is your favorite East Asian or Southeast Asian footballer?
Oh, you know what? Great question. Recency bias could creep in here, but I'm gonna go for if I could say two. Like one for heritage, I'm going for big Keizuki Honda. absolutely for heritage. That wonderful effort, done the job for many years. Think he's an icon. But currently, I think it just have to be Big Matoma, man. That boy has got he's got my heart right now. I think that's a star right there. So I'd say I'd give Honda for longevity and heritage. But I think Matoma might he's Pardew San's a great shout. Nakamura, free kick specialist, obviously. But I think Matoma's got like his dribbling is just I think he's like my favorite. He remind me of one of my favorite players right overall right now, but definitely East Asian for sure. Like my favorite player right now.
Even after what he did to Ben White.
Mate, that's even made me more of a lover. That's the problem here. There's nothing brings me more when I see players, when I see a great dribbler and I see the confidence of that. But what he did to Van Dijk, mate, made me a fan. So ever since he's been this season, he's been one of my favorite players to watch. So yeah, I think Big Matoma definitely is the future of not the future of the Prem, but definitely of East Asian football. I think he's gonna be one of the biggest stars for sure.
Yeah, that is a great shout. I mean, Honda streets will never forget. What a baller! That hair, man, looked like what was it? What's that Don from Street Fighter? The one that gets like electrocuted and has like orange hair. Yeah, no,
that's Honda, bro.
It was Honda, right? Yeah, okay, it was Honda. Okay, perfect namesake. There you go. All right, well, thank you very much to Antony and to Ayo for joining the podcast. I definitely do hope to have Ayo back on the podcast again very soon. Let us know if you agree with his shocking takes. That will make sure that we get him back on the pod. Thank you very much, guys.
Cheers, Ayo. Thanks for coming on, bro. And yeah, see you guys next week.
My pleasure. Take care. Thank you.